Welcome to the Wolverine Digest podcast, the best spot for objective and authentic coverage of Michigan athletics. If you want open dialogue, honest opinions, and in-depth coverage of the maize and blue, this is the podcast for you. And now, here's your host, Brandon Brown, joined as always by Chris Breiler.
I'm just going to start by saying go blue.
We are back, baby.
Is this real life? Is this really happening? Are we really back?
It's real life. After a little more than a week of jet setting around, I was out there flying around, traveling the country,
Playing video games, eating pizza.
pretty much. A lot of that. I almost just got poked in the eye just now by your binky out with your drink that.
Oh, this?
This right here.
Oh, this right here. This
Look
is.
Wait. Let me fade the music out. So we were, for everybody who's just now joining in as we actually went live, we jump on, typically 15, 10, sometimes 5 minutes before we go live. We talk a little bit, figure out our plan. We were doing that. Everything's cool. We got a few topics. We know what we're going to do. Then as the intro music starts up, Chris lifts up what I can only believe is I'm gonna let you have the floor. Please tell us.
It's a man-mosa is what it is, really.
Okay.
And I only break it out for special occasions, and it's kind of a sweeter drink. And I thought, well, if not for the Sweet 16, then when? So I'll be sipping on my man-mosa. I mean, if you want to, if anybody wants to judge me out there, it tastes really good. It tastes good. But the pinky must be out. And then when I'm done, I'll eat the strawberry.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. Well, what's in it? I'm actually curious. What is it made of?
Well, a really cheap Chardonnay.
Okay.
And then I throw a couple of the orange slices in the bottom, let that go. A little splash of orange juice, a little strawberry on the side.
Strawberry.
That's about it, man. Yeah, that's about it. Man,
very, very bougie. Well, so we leave for 2 weeks when we come back, and this is where we're at. We're doing man-mosa recipes.
I got bougie in the meantime.
Chris went out and got bougie over the last 2 weeks.
Must be. I can feel spring is upon us.
We are back. I'm going to kick it over to you. I'm going to kind of let you take the reins on this because you put a story up on it, and it freaking blew up on the website. And honestly, I'm not trying to disparage what you wrote. It really wasn't that big of a deal, but it just goes to show that Urban Meyer's a D, and everything the dude has touched since he left Ohio State has been a hot, flaming, finger-deedling mess.
Yeah,
right?
I don't understand. I don't understand what the guy's deal is. When we put out the story, there were people that were like, well, just leave the guy alone. He's been gone from Ohio State for a while. But I think as these stories keep coming out, it's it just goes to show that he genuinely is you have to be a terrible person for these things to keep coming out and these reports to keep surfacing. I mean, everything from kicking people, telling people that you wouldn't make $15 an hour if I fired you. This guy just seems like a giant bag of dicks. And every time we put up a story about it, people are interested in it because they want to know what the latest thing is. So he's a really, really good college football coach. He obviously accomplished a lot at the collegiate level. But outside of that, as a human being, the guy just seems like a complete disaster.
Yeah, it's weird, man. I don't entirely disagree. He's pretty far removed from Ohio State at this point. But, not really, because we learned about the fact that when they hired a new defensive coordinator, which wasn't that long ago, he's walking around the buildings and running his mouth about Michigan. So until I stop hearing about stories like that, we're going to keep doing stories like this. And apparently they just are going to keep happening because this guy can't help himself, and he's just a bad.
It's a wild ride.
It is.
How has there not been an intervention and just somebody saying, look, you just got to stop being terrible? Has there ever been an intervention to stop someone from being terrible?
No substances involved whatsoever. Complete asshat. And you just try to get in there and tone them down.
Being a terrible person has affected me in the following ways.
Just try to tone them down. I mean, yeah, it's been weird. It's been weird. So we are going to do a little bit of football. I mean, obviously spring practices getting closer to being done. The spring game is in a little over a week on April 2nd. I think I saw somebody out asking about it. We don't know what time yet. We haven't gotten any official word from Michigan. We haven't gotten any, apply for credentials, or are you going to do photography on the sidelines? Are you going to be there? Like, we haven't got anything like that yet. It's only a week away, and we still don't really know a whole lot about it other than it's going to be on April 2nd. But as it is getting closer, we've been able to hear from some of the coaches. We've been able to hear from some of the players. I know Jim Harbaugh and some of the players sat down with Taylor Lewan and Will Compton on their podcast, Bussin' with the Boys. Pretty hilarious. You can ask about Dick's inside the building and drop.
It's crazy to me. We were talking about this.
We can't even get a third-person credential to cover press conferences.
We were talking about this earlier. We ride such a fine line between, we try to be professional, but you also want access and you want to kind of play by the rules. And then I turn on this Bussin' with the Boys podcast, and there's Luan asking Jim Harbaugh if he looks at meat in the shower, and I'm like, how is this happening?
To be fair, it was Will Compton asking about the meat, but
Luan was very much interested in the meat topic as well. But the bottom line is, it just goes to show, like, you can get away with a little more than maybe you think, depending on who you are, which is usually the case.
Neither of us are All-Americans that played at Michigan and 15-year NFL vets. So we don't have that going for us.
We're not.
But it is, those are two very opposite ends of the spectrum when you watch the kind of language they're using and what they're talking about versus we just are like, can we please take some photos? They're like, no, leave. And I'm like, all right. So that's all right. That's where we're at. Okay. John Patrick, Jim Harbaugh's answer was he acted like he had never set foot out of his house before. He just covered his ears and his eyes and felt very, very uncomfortable, it looked like, which I don't know. He can't just.
What are you going to say?
Yeah, he can't. In his position,
yeah, I look at the meat.
The head of the he knows if he says anything even remotely close to the line, not even over it, it's gonna be everywhere forever.
Yeah,
and so he has to be wary of that. The players were a little looser with their answers, and I think maybe some other coaches in the past have been a little looser. But Harbaugh, he gets it, man. He's polarizing, dude. When he says something, people run to the hills with it. Dude, it's not all that different than what we're doing with Urban Meyer, to be completely honest. If Urban Meyer did an interview and was talking about watching dudes in the shower, I would write an article about it. So there you go. But it was still pretty funny. But anyway, so the football stuff, though, they talked to Zach Zinner. We heard a little bit about Mike Sainristil still. We obviously know the situation that's going on with Cade and JJ not being able to fully perform. So I don't know, Chris. As we get closer to the spring game, it is April 2nd. We're 8 days away from that. How excited are you? Where's your excitement level about what we'll see? How many answers do you think we'll get? What are some things that you think might stand out as we all are going to be taking some football in here in about a week and a day?
Well, I'll be honest, the injury to JJ really took a lot of the wind out of the sails for me in terms of the excitement, because I think that's the battle that everybody wants to see. It's really the only position where there's, only going to be one guy on the field at a time, and whoever's going to win that battle. I think maybe watching the offensive line, seeing how they're coming together, definitely taking a look at that defensive line, what's going on up front, what's the secondary look like. I think that's going to be interesting, but we all know that, it was JJ versus Cade, and we wanted to see what that battle was going to look like. So how much are we going to know from the spring game? Probably, little, if anything. And I don't even know, is it going to be an actual game this time, or is it going to be another glorified scrimmage? Because it hasn't been an actual game contest in a while, I think.
It felt there hasn't been a lot of definitive information about it, but it felt kind of like how they dropped it and how they presented it. It might be a little bit more like a game this time. I don't know if we'll, I'm sure we'll find a little bit more out as it gets even closer. We'll get an email from the department that'll say, here's what to expect. Here's when you can show up. Here's what we're going to have. Here's what we're going to do. We haven't gotten that yet. And so I don't know. We could probably dig on that a little bit and see what the players have been told and how they're going to do it and what's going to be the approach. But I'm with you. I'm always excited about the spring game. It's like a little dose of football, months in advance. And it's really cool to see some of the freshmen, and there's going to be a bunch of them out there. But yeah, JJ being hurt is a bummer. I'll tell you what, and Chris, I don't know. I know you're real active on Instagram too. Have you been seeing the clips and the footage? And well, maybe it's just been pictures. I can't remember of Olu, the center, the grad transfer from Virginia. Dude looks like a beast in his uniform, dude. He looks so big and so put together at that center spot, and you kind of wonder, what the rest of the line is going to look around him. But, I'm excited to, I don't know. I don't get too pumped up about watching the O-line. I don't watch them that closely very often, and I don't know how much we'll see in the spring game, but I'm really excited about him. I am, and I can't remember the last time I was, excited to watch a center play.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about the pictures that are coming out of spring ball, and I will say Alex Orji, I've seen photos coming out of the dude slinging the ball, and he just looks like he's got it put together. I haven't seen him play in person. Maybe our first chance will be at the spring game, getting to see him out there, run around, throw the ball. But
dude has to be at least 28 years old.
Just from a physical standpoint, from looking at him, he looks like the type of guy who, is a big time quarterback. And so I'm really interested to see what his development looks like. I don't know if was there initially talk about whether or not he would remain at the QB position? Because he's an athlete, right? He can do a little bit of everything, but man, he looks good throwing the ball, at least from what you can see the pictures coming out. He fits the part.
And like you said, it's pictures. It's 4 of them. 4, 5, 8 pictures. We haven't seen anything about what he's doing when it comes to going through the motions and reading a defense, but physically, 6'1", 6'2", 230 probably. I mean, the dude is absolutely yoked and is a really good athlete, had a lot of rushing touchdowns and was really productive as a dual threat guy in high school. And there was some talk that maybe he'd look at even like a linebacker, kind of like a Mike Barrett type. Mike Barrett was a very successful dual threat quarterback in high school, and he's done a lot of different things at Michigan, and maybe that's the future that Alex Orji has. But when you look at him, you can't help but be a little bit, a little bit excited or at least intrigued by what he might be able to do if he sticks at quarterback. And so we'll see. But the freshman, obviously, the new center, Mike Sainristil moving over to DB, which we've heard some good things. Steve Klinkscale talked about him. I think he used the word dog. Mike Sainristil is a dog over there. He's making plays, and that's not super surprising. The last time we were on here, we talked about that move and how he was really, really good there in high school. And if we're being honest, he's really built more like a DB than he is a wide receiver with, being 5'11", about a $185. Really quick twitch, really sticky, should be pretty good in coverage. I'm curious to see, if he carves out playing time for himself this year at DB. And then the last thing, and I mean, you and I are as high on Donovan Edwards as probably everybody. I mean, it's not a secret that people are excited about that kid. Not to the point where people are forgetting about Blake Corum, but I think everybody's super, super pumped about what Donovan Edwards can do. And apparently Sharon Moore had some stuff to say about him. I know you picked up on that, and probably make everybody even more excited, right?
I mean, something to the effect of it's the best combo or one of the best combos, in the nation, or it's not a surprise to anybody. You look at those two guys, and I think that's what, the running back position at the University of Michigan has been sort of an embarrassment of riches over the last couple of years. You got a lot of guys in that spot. Son Haskins was obviously phenomenal, became a Michigan legend last year for what he did against Ohio State. And then you look at guys like Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, and it's really, really hard not to get excited, especially when you consider how different their game is and what Donovan Edwards brings, from the standpoint where he can come out of the backfield and he can catch some of those. I mean, what was it against Maryland? I think he had 7 receptions, 10 receptions for 177 yards, set the Michigan record for a UM running back. I just think they've got a lot of weapons on the offensive side of the ball. We know that. I'm really interested to see what it looks like and how they use them. Granted, you're not going to see hardly anything in a spring game, but you just hope that what they have coming back on the offensive side, that somebody there can see it and they say, let's open this thing up and let's put some points on the board. Because quite frankly, I think they're going to have to.
Yeah. Douglas, yes, spring is, unless they've changed something, it's free. You show up like you would for any game. You park where you can park. I mean, it's not nearly as crowded as a regular fall Saturday, but depending on the weather and depending on how it looks like it's going to be played and who wants to make the trek, there'll be some butts in the seats. So get there early. It's more like a first come, first serve. I don't know. I feel like they've typically, trying to think back to the last time we did one that was more like a game. I feel like they generally keep everybody in one section of the stadium.
They try to. I mean, I've gone over, I've never had trouble getting a seat for a spring game ever. Go over.
Yeah, no. There won't be any trouble. Yeah, you won't be turned away or nothing like that. But you show up and you roll in there and like I said, we don't know exactly what the structure is going to be. And yes, it is another question about it. It is supposed to be on TV on BTN. So whether you can make it or not, you should be able to see it. I don't know if it will be live on BTN. Sometimes that is an issue that they have. Although Michigan's spring game is quite a bit earlier than most, I think, this year. So it might be the only one going on that day. Typically in the past, they've had a couple of them overlap, so they kind of stagger them out through the day or over a weekend or whatever. But it's supposed to be on the Big Ten Network, so you should be able to check it out there. There was one other question up here that I wanted to ask. Oh, I thought this was a good one. And I mean, I don't really know if we can definitively answer this yet because we just don't know. I just feel like you automatically have to say that Minter he's up against it more than Mike McDonald was. Like he doesn't have Aiden Hutchinson. He doesn't have David Ojabo. He doesn't have leaders like Josh Ross and Daxton Hill and Brad. I mean, Mike Minter is starting, and the cupboard's not bare. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like he's starting behind the 8 ball in a much bigger way than Mike McDonald was. I mean, is that fair to say at this point on March 24th?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you think about what McDonald had. That was 2 of the most dominant edge rushers in Michigan football history. I mean, breaking records, sack records. I think Ojabo had the record for strip sacks in a season. Aiden set the sack record. I mean, 2 elite edge rushers. Minter's not going to have that, and they're going to have to find that. And you've got guys like Braden McGregor and Mike Morris and Jalen Harrell, and you've got candidates that can step into that. But I think he can be as good as McDonald in terms of like what he's doing schematically. But the question is, just from personnel on the field, can they match the production or live up to the production that came out of last year with those 2 guys? And that's going to be hard to match. Was 24 or 25 sacks between the 2? How do you make that up, and where does that come from?
I'm curious about that. You said schematically versus personnel, and I think that is going to be a big discussion. I mean, we don't know I don't know. You can go back and watch what Mike Minter's done at some other stops, but I keep calling him Mike Minter. It's Jesse Minter. Mike Minter is that safety from the Panthers who played like in 2005. I don't know why. Get out of there. Jesse Minter, the defensive coordinator for Michigan. You can go back and watch some of his previous stops, but it's different at every stop. It's different with your new bodies. It's different with what you've got to work with. And I frankly was just so impressed with what Mike McDonald did in terms of his X's and O's and how he adjusted not only from like quarter to quarter or half to half, but literally series by series. Like you would watch a team do something successfully for a couple plays, and the next time the defense was out, it was taken away. And that's something we just flat out didn't see with Don Brown ever. For as much as much as people loved him early on, and the attitude and the mustache and the accent and the blitz, like it didn't work all the time, and he never went away from it. And Mike McDonald was like, "No, dude, scrap it all, switch this, do that, do this." Tell me, and it was completely different from series to series. I'm curious if it will be that noticeable with Jesse Minter. I don't know. I don't know enough about him, and honestly, if you go back and look at every single play he ever called for Vanderbilt, I just don't know how much you're going to learn from that because they're not very good. They're not very talented. They're bottom feeders in the SEC, and they were just trying to scrap it together, I feel like, every week and usually getting blown out in the process. So I don't really know how much you can get from his previous stop, but he's another guy with NFL ties, reportedly a smart guy, reportedly very detail-oriented. A lot of the same traits that we heard about Mike McDonald, you'll also hear about Jesse Minter. So I am excited to see that. But, yeah, X's and O's versus the personnel, the X's and O's versus Jimmy's and Joe's, right? There's some dudes on that team still, but man, when you talk about what's not there anymore, it's a huge gap to close. And while I'm on it, and Chris, you've had a lot of discussions with David Ojabo over the last handful of months when we had the T-shirt design and did we have him on? We had him on.
He
early,
came on
right?
early.
Early. That's right. Before he kind of blew up, we had him on. Dude, how bummed out were you to hear that he got injured at his pro day?
It was awful. I mean, you watch the video and you watch how it happened, and it's like you never want somebody to get hurt, but when it happens like that, it seems unnecessary, and I think it raises the question, like, why are we putting these guys through? They already have film that's out there, and I think after the injury happened, pretty much with what I heard was they told Hutchinson to basically shut it down. Everybody sort of clammed up and was like, all right, we'll just call it a day. It sucks, man, because
Yeah.
it's going to cost them money, and there's no way around it. And I think one of the interesting things that came out of it was to see how athletes responded to the video. Now, I think, and I don't know if you were up to speed on this, but there was a controversy about the response and how people it looked like nobody was really coming to Ojabo's aid. There was one guy that walked over there and picked up a football, but everybody sort of took a step back and looked away. And so, but you could see other athletes on social media retweeting that video and basically saying like, yeah, you would be surprised, or maybe you wouldn't be shocked of how athletes are treated when certain injuries happen. Like, just take the ball, move it up 10 yards and keep going. And so it created a really interesting dialogue. I think it might've been a little unfair because there wasn't everything in frame in that video. And so you can't really see what was going on elsewhere, but it sure did. It was not a good video. It wasn't a good look. I'll say that.
It just sucks all around. I mean, the kid's story is incredible, and it just looked like it was shaping up to be as storybook as you could imagine. I mean, you're talking about a kid who was born in Nigeria, grew up in Scotland, didn't even play football until he was like 15. You know, blossomed at Michigan, turned into this superstar athletic freak. Just getting by on his raw athleticism for the most part. I mean, that's not all it was.
Let me ask you this. Does it now create a scenario where the Lions can draft both of them?
Yeah, well, we are, I tell you what,
what is this?
We are stepping into some cool.
We can't listen.
Sandra.
We can't fend them off. Sandra, look,
this is not the time.
This is not the time. I
Hit me
appreciate
on my,
it. Now she's going after Ron. Look how quickly she moved on.
Ron Thomas I tried to block the user. What happened here?
I don't know. If anybody can't see it out there, we're getting spammed with
That is wild. That is wild stuff. I mean,
we're also making love connections here. We're not just talking sports.
CJ says, I'm single.
Bullshit, CJ.
CJ came in a little late. He said, what I miss? I'm like, I was thinking about, we missed Chris talking about his man Mosa. We talked about a little meat in the shower. You missed a lot to be quite frank, but apparently you were just in time for the sexual solicitation. So that's awesome.
You addicted to sex? A sex addiction or something?
Again, who isn't? Is there really anybody that isn't?
Yeah, I don't know. So that's great. That's great. Yeah, the Ojabo stuff just sucks, man. I mean, like, he was about to be, I don't know, he was being projected from anywhere like close to top 10 to certainly top 20. And okay, that's where did that come from, Steve? I see your from on 3 that the spring game is going to be more like a game, which is what I thought. I mean, the way they announced it and the way they had kind of started talking about it, and from what I heard, kind of how they talked about like what JJ was going to do and not be involved in, I thought that's what it felt like, but I wasn't for sure. So yeah, that'll be good. If people can make it into town, I'm sure it'll be a good time, but who knows? I saw somebody saying the weather already looks like it's going to be awful. So yeah, we'll see about that. But it just really, I don't want to say like, where do you fall on all this stuff, Chris? I find myself really going back and forth on like what players should do. You know, like Jake Butt didn't sit out the bowl game and he tore up his knee and he never really recovered, man. And now the dude's not even playing football anymore. And like now David Ojabo looked like he was going to be a top 15 pick. And now he's going to plummet down the draft boards. Then you've got guys like Aiden Hutchinson who would have played 50 more games probably if he could, but like, why?
Right.
It's just like, you know, what's the answer for this stuff, man? It's just such a tricky deal.
I think hindsight, it's always easy to go back and say
Sure.
but I think you look at what happened with Ojabo, and again, it was a meaningless rep. Like there was that, if that event didn't happen, nothing was going to change with his career. That's how meaningless it is. And so I think if I'm a guy like David Ojabo or I'm an Aiden Hutchinson and I know I'm projected first round, second round pick, I'm not going through it. You've got my tape. You've watched my career. Like maybe I'll do some sort of like a private workout where I keep things light, but I'm not going to run through, go through all the trials and put that sort of stress on my body before, being able to cash in on all that work that I put in. And so I think it really puts these guys in a tough spot because on one hand, you want to show what you're capable of, but on the other hand, you risk what happened to Ojabo. And like I said, it's going to cost him money. He's going to fall down the draft board. Who knows where he's going to go, but it just seems pointless. There's no reason for it.
Yeah,
I mean, what are they figuring out in those drills that they didn't figure out during his last season, that week 1 through, week 13? What are they going to learn through those drills that they haven't already learned about David Ojabo? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, I know. I find myself really, really flip-flopping when I have thoughts about it. Like when I'm watching, I like the combine. I watch the combine. I think it's interesting. I like watching dudes run the 40, seeing how guys move, stuff like that. And every single time they put a dude on the screen and they're like, he won't be working out today, I'm like, wow, man, get out there and do it. But then you hear a story like this, you're like, don't do anything. Like, seriously, stop doing everything. Like, what the hell's the point? It's just really hard. It's really hard. Now, for some guys, like they can really help themselves at these events, and it's huge for them to go. But for a guy like Hutchinson and even Ojabo, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's not, if there's 32 teams in the NFL, there's probably not. There might be 10 or 12 who are like, I'd like to see a little more out of him.
See, that's why I think those are great. For a guy like Hassan Haskins, who clearly is talented. That's not to say like, his health isn't as important as the other two guys, but you're already a projected first round pick. You know how people feel about you. For Hassan Haskins, you're trying to increase your draft stock. You're trying to show people what you're capable of. And clearly you can see, where you're falling in the rankings by various people. If you want to improve your draft stock, I feel like that's what those things are for. But if you're a guy that's projected to go first round, I feel like there's enough tape out there to where you shouldn't have to go through those trials.
On the flip side, I see Hassler 24/7 from the YouTube page asking about Kayvon Thibodeaux. He's fallen down the board a little bit because he didn't do anything. He shut it down. He missed a lot of time last year with injuries, and he kind of, a lot of people thought he was milking it.
Yeah.
He also seems to be way more concerned with some of the off-field stuff and his brand than he does being a great football player. Then he doesn't do the combine. He cuts his pro day short. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. And this is a guy that was once viewed as maybe the top first or second pick. He's down the board a good bit now. You're talking about $10 million or more probably when you get to that level. There's just a lot of sides to it.
But then Hassler brings up a guy like Brad Hawkins. Hawkins should use
every rep.
Exactly. So I think from a fan perspective, and they can do whatever the hell they want, but I think from a fan's perspective, when I look at it now, especially after seeing that Ojabo injury, if they don't want to go through it, I completely understand, because his career path, if you think about now, I'm sure he'll recover, he'll get back on track, he'll get in the league, but I just think that instance wasn't worth it. And that's what sucks about it, is it was just such a meaningless event.
It's so crazy though, because you watch that video clip and you're like, he's literally done that 1,000 times. Why did something happen right there?
Yeah.
Like he would even probably tell you that. He's like, dude, like that was a plant and run. I just planted my foot and ran. Like I've done that.
I mean, is it one of those things where if it's going to happen, it's going to happen regardless? Like,
That's what I'm saying. Like he could have done that at his own private workout in his backyard the next day. If he, I don't know. It's just, there's no right answer. I think that's kind of where we're at. Every scenario is a little bit different.
Here's my answer. I'm going to protect my money. And if I'm a projected first round pick, I ain't doing shit. If somebody doesn't, if somebody wants to pass on me in the first round, like I'll take my chances, because if I'm being projected as a first round pick, I've clearly done enough to like garner interest. People know who I am and what I'm about. I don't need to prove it in a combine.
Yeah. It just sucks for Ojabo specifically this time. And there's been other guys over, the last handful of years that have done something similar. But I mean, dude, it's a guy we've talked to. It's a guy we've interacted with. His story was incredible. And now, I mean, he'll probably be all right. But there's a difference in going top 10, top 15 to third or fourth round because of a stupid injury that didn't need to happen. And that just blows, man. There's no other way to slice it. So anyway, speedy recovery to him, man. I hope he comes back full strength. I hope he has a long, long productive career in the NFL and he's no worse for the wear. But, the draft is less than a month away, and that's not going to be as special of a day for him as it should have been. That sucks. So anyway, let's talk basketball, dude.
Basketball.
Oh, boy. I was getting a phone call. Is my sound messed up now? It probably
I think my sound messed. Okay, I'm gonna dip out and come back in. I got the echo.
All right, anybody out there, if our sound is messed up, let us know. Whenever I get a phone call and it comes through my computer, it tends to throw things off a little bit. So hopefully I'm good. We'll see if Chris is still good when he comes back. But, yeah, apparently I'm going to bring Chris back right now. He's right here. Apparently there's a basketball game tonight. We might as well talk about it. No, Michigan obviously in the Sweet 16, taking on 2-seeded Villanova tonight. And I'm super pumped about it, dude, because I think Michigan can beat this team. They're only like a 4.5 point dog against the number 2 seed Villanova. Did I say Vanderbilt a couple
Almost.
times?
We were talking about Jesse Minner. That's where you get the Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt, Villanova. Okay. Jay Wright, Villanova, Wildcats. I think Michigan can beat them. I really do. I think I tweeted this out a little bit ago. Now, look, Villanova is very, very disciplined. They have extremely smart and veteran, experienced guards running that team. Colin Gillespie's about 41 years old. He's been there forever. And Justin Moore is the other guard. He's a junior. He plays a ton of minutes. So they've got a lot of the same formula that makes Michigan a scary team, I think, and very experienced, heady, seen-it-all guards in Eli Brooks and Devontae Jones. Now, obviously, Jones is playing up a level, but he's played a ton of basketball. On paper, I thought Tennessee would give them the bigger fit. I mean, they had way more size, way more explosiveness and speed and athleticism at the guards. I think Michigan matches up extremely well with Villanova. Now, I don't know if you're going to get a Villanova team to shoot 2 for 18 from 3, like Michigan got. They affected some of that, but Tennessee did just miss some shots in that game. There's no doubt about it. Michigan's playing well. They're super confident. They know where they're at. They want to get back to where they were last year and past that. I'm pumped tonight because I think they can win, man. I really do. I like, to me, it's basically a toss-up game. The spread kind of indicates that. I mean, 4 or 5 points isn't a lot when you're talking about this stage of the tournament, but I'm excited to watch it, dude, because I think Michigan's got a real shot.
Well, here, so do I. I think Michigan absolutely has a real shot. They're playing phenomenal basketball right now. But here's what concerns me going into tonight is that you're right. Villanova's very disciplined. They don't have these long stretches where they just don't score. Mm-hmm. And Michigan can sometimes go through that where they get ice cold. And I don't want to dog on the kid because I love him and I hope he has a great career at the University of Michigan and I hope he figures it out. But to me, I think Caleb Houston he's got to have a short leash tonight because you need guys on the floor that can score, get points somehow. And there are too many times where he's on the floor for a lengthy period of time and he is absolutely ineffective on the offensive side. I don't know if it's mental. I don't know what's going on. Like I said, I'm rooting for the kid. I want him to figure it out. But I mean, yeah, give Terrence Williams more minutes. Get Frankie Collins on the floor. I don't think they can afford to go 3 or 4 minutes without scoring points tonight and expect to be in the game.
I'm with you. Villanova, they're efficient. They're like you said, they don't go cold. They don't run cold. Their points per possession is one of the best in the country. They just, again, those experienced guards, Colin Gillespie can shoot it from everywhere. Justin Moore, a little bit more of a, kind of a two-way player. But, dude, their starting front court is 6'7" and 6'8". I mean, again, Hunter Dickinson is going to go into this game as the biggest guy on the floor by a lot. That wasn't really the case against Tennessee. They had a couple big dudes on that team, and he still was able to eat.
No, were they really that big, though? Were they that big?
Little babies, yeah, Hunter. But the point is that Dickinson has got to be the focal point. Again, you got to feed him inside. If he settles for three-pointers, I think if he shoots more than – well, I'm going to do a little over-under with you. I'm going to throw a couple at you. We didn't plan on this, but I saw somebody ask about it in the comments, and I like it. Yes, they're the best free-throw shooting team in the country. Colin Gillespie shoots it at like 91%. So you're talking about a close game down the stretch where you got to put guys on the stripe. They are not the team to do that with. So they've got some things that they do better than Tennessee, and I also think they do some things worse than Tennessee. They're not as athletic. They're not as long. They're not as fast. They don't turn you over as much. So, I think this is a pretty good matchup for Michigan. I think Michigan's going to be able to hang with them, and if it's close down the stretch, I think that's the beauty of the tournament, though. I mean, it's every game. You could say that about every game. Oh, if it's close down the stretch, it might, that's what happens in this stage of the tournament. But I just really like the matchup on paper. I think Michigan's got a lot of weapons that are going to be a problem for for Villanova.
Yeah, well, and to your point, going through Hunter Dickinson, I think is a big deal because Villanova doesn't turn the ball over. And if you're Michigan, you got to make all the possessions count. And so, sometimes Michigan will get in the habit where they'll throw lazy passes, they'll turn the ball over. Villanova doesn't do that. They don't really have those lapses in judgment. And so I think if you're Michigan, you got to come out with the sense of every single time down the floor, we got to make something, we got to get a bucket. It has to be a productive trip down the floor. They can't get careless with the ball. I think if they start to get careless with the ball and then they find themselves down early, I just think Villanova is so disciplined. And like I said earlier, they don't have those lapses where they don't score. It's hard to claw your way back.
All right. I'm going to throw a few over-unders at you and see what you think about them. You want to do that? I like that idea.
Yeah, let's do it.
I wasn't planning on doing it, but it just popped into me when I saw somebody. So whoever that was, thank you for the seed. Thank you for the seed that you pointed. It was Johnny Patrick. It's not exactly what an over-under is, but I like the inspiration there. Over-under on Hunter Dickinson getting a double. It's more like a yes or no question. But whatever, dude. Thanks, man. I appreciate that because now we're going to launch into a segment. Want to do it? Let's do a little
let's do it.
Little music to go along
impromptu
with.
Segment?
Over-unders music. I love it.
This requires a pinky.
I love a pinky. I told Chris, I'm like, dude, you almost poked my eye out with your pinky hanging out there before we got started. All right. Here we go. Hunter Dickinson, over under 19.5 points.
Over. It's going to have to be over.
Fast.
That offense has to run through Hunter Dickinson tonight. It's going to be over. I see him somewhere in like the 23, 25 points.
I think he's averaging like 24 through the first two games, right?
Yeah.
So, law of averages tells you to take the over, but dude, Jay Wright, dude, he's a G, man.
They're planning for him.
He is an OG, and he will have a plan in place to try to not let Hunter Dickinson do that. Because if he's a good coach, and he's going to say like, all right, well, nobody else out there is going to beat us, so we got to stop him.
Okay, fine. Then you know what? If Hunter Dickinson is that dude, then he won't be stopped. We've seen him say it, right? He's that dude. We'll find out. This is where you find when you walk around the court and you say, "I'm him. I'm that dude." This is the time where you really start to find out.
All right, same player, Hunter Dickinson, over under 8.5 rebounds.
I'll go over.
I said I'll go over right there, didn't I?
That was tough. That's tough. Probably put him right at 8, but I'll go over.
Okay, over by.
Well, I'll put him at 9. I'll put him at 9 boards.
So let's go back and answer John.
I don't think he gets the double-double. No.
You saying no on the dub-dub. All right. I think it's going to be really close. I think if he does get a double-double,
I think it's going to be like one of the guards. I think it's going to be Eli Brooks is probably going to pull down 7, 8, 9 boards. I mean, you've seen him do that throughout the tournament. I think Devontae Jones, I think that's where you're going to see it. But I mean, if Hunter pulls down, if it's 25 and 9, that feels like a pretty good outing for Michigan, right? If that's the end all be all, I feel like Michigan gets the W, right?
You can't technically say double-double right there, but you take that every day. 25 and 9. All right. Speaking of Devontae Jones, when he's on the floor, he's been start to finish from the season, he has been a little bit of a roller coaster. But as of late, he's been really good. But then he got dinged in the tournament. We kind of saw the emergence of Frankie Collins. So now we're going to see what we're going to see. I mean, is he 100%? Can he go? If he gets bonked in the head again, is he out like he was last game? I mean, there is a little bit of question marks surrounding Devontae Jones, his availability, how healthy he is, and what he's really going to be able to give Michigan. But I'm still going to throw it out there. Devontae Jones over under 5.5 assists.
I'll go under, only because I'm not sure if he's even going to be able to play the entire game. I hope to see Frankie Collins get a few more minutes. That guy's all gas, no breaks. I think he brings a lot of energy to the floor that I think Michigan's going to need tonight. Nothing against Devontae Jones. Their games are just different, and I think nights like tonight call for a guy like Frankie Collins.
I hear you, man. Look, he's going to play. I mean, he's shown that he needs to be on the court. It's crazy. I was talking to my dad about this. Because I think maybe he texted me during the first game. He was like, this Frankie Collins kid can play. Where the hell's he been all year? I'm like, yeah, it's a good question. Because some games he barely even saw the court. But it's weird. Last game against Tennessee, he played like 30 minutes. He only scored 2 points, only had 2 assists. But I felt like he played an amazing game, and he didn't even really do anything in the stat sheet. But the pace, the attacking, the downhill, the kind of creating for others. He brings something that Devontae Jones doesn't. Devontae Jones does a lot that Frankie doesn't do as well, but
it's like Denard Robinson versus Tate Forcier, kind of.
You think?
Well, maybe not really.
It's a little bit of a stretch. All right. The other guard that you mentioned, the forgotten man almost, but maybe, I don't know, dude. Is he the most important player on Michigan's team? He might be. Eli Brooks, over under 2.5 threes.
Over.
Okay.
Over. That, the guy's, he's been at Michigan forever, and he's, I think, he was the one player that was on the floor the last time Michigan faced Villanova, right, and lost. Is that right? I think he's the only player, the only leftover from that. So, look, the guy's due for a big game. He remembers what happened. Give me the over. You said 2.5, right?
2.5.
2.5. And I'll put it at 3, and 2 of them come in the second half, and they're big boys.
Okay.
They're big boys.
Make a note of that right there. Second half, Chris. Stamp it. All right. Your boy, Caleb Houston. Dude, they're like, somebody will probably throw the stat up there. I do this for a living. I should probably know it, but I don't. When he scores 15, Michigan's virtually unbeatable. They actually might be undefeated when he scores 15. I know there's a stat out there like that. I'm sure somebody will have that at the ready. I don't have it set that high, but I still think he needs to. I mean, scoring a bucket would be cool. How about that? Can we get a bucket out of the 5-star? Caleb Houston over under 11.5 points.
Under.
You think he's under?
I think, I don't know, man. If he gets, I just feel like he's got to hit like his first 2 or 3 shots to get there, because if he starts off with a miss, he just, I don't know, man. We've talked about this. I've called you after games, and I'm like, I'm trying to see it. I'm trying to figure out, like, is he great on the defensive side? Like, what is it? I just think sometimes he comes off as more of a liability than anything else on the floor, because you can't count on him to get you some buckets. And so for now, I would say under, but man, if it's over, I would think I don't know what Michigan's record is, but I would say when Caleb Houston plays well, it probably bodes well for the Wolverines.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt about it. And it's tough, dude. I mean, I think I'm not Juwan Howard. I'm not in practice every day. I'm not seeing what he's seeing. But when you look at a kid, 6'8", I mean, you remember when we went to that media?
Yes.
Day, that dude's body, like,
he's impressive.
Size, what he should be able to bring you every possession on both ends. I can't take him out. I just can't. And he doesn't. He plays like 32 minutes a night. Even when he's not scoring, he doesn't come off the court. So I want to ask you one thing about him. You said that he should have a short leash. What does that mean? I mean, like, does he get 12 minutes to score 10? Or if not, you're sitting down for a while?
You know what? You know what it means? It means I probably don't even start him.
Wow.
I let Caleb Houston take a look at things from the bench at the beginning and just kind of get a sense of the game from the sideline. And maybe he'll perform better in that role. Maybe Caleb Houston off the bench is where it's at. Maybe that's what's going to help him.
You're going to do that mix up?
But what did you get? What did you get against Tennessee?
I know.
What was it? What did you get? 0 for
everything. 0 for what?
Right.
Who cares what it's
so yeah, in the Sweet 16, I'm thinking I can't get 0 for out of my 5-star guard. Like, I've got to get points there. I've got to get production there. And if coming off the bench, even if it's 2 or 3 minutes in, helps Caleb Houston, whatever it is, I think it's up here. Clearly,
all right.
Talented.
Okay, then, Coach Breiler. Terrence Williams over under 14.5 minutes.
Should be over.
Yeah.
It should be over. That guy, if there's anybody who's played their way into more minutes on that roster, it's Terrence Williams, because every time he comes in, he does all the stuff you need a player to do to keep you in the game. And so, again, there's some stretches where I see Terrence Williams on the bench, and I'm like, why isn't he in the game? Yeah. What is happening? And you want to trust in a guy like Juwan Howard, because obviously Juwan Howard knows more about basketball than a couple of dipshits like us, but From the cheap seats, it looks like Terrence Williams should be on the floor more. It looks like Frankie Collins should be on the floor more, but that's just me from the cheap seats.
I think I'd have to go look back, but I think he was under that. I think he was under 14.5 minutes against Tennessee, and he got the most out of the minutes he did get. I mean, he's offensive rebounds and putbacks and knocking down a 3 or 2.
Just let him go out there and fucking shove people around and just, mix it up.
He's got the athletic tape all over. He looks like
Love
Spider-Man,
it.
dude. Yeah.
Just
All
making things difficult for people. That's what you need
last
him out
one.
for.
And I'm going to expand on this question a little bit once you answer the over-under part. Moussa Diabate, over-under 3.5 fouls. Because that seems to be kind of where he has his big games and his not-so-big games, is when he gets a little slap-happy out there.
I'd say over. I mean, I think he's gonna have to play physical, and I think you're gonna see him. See, to me, he's the guy that's probably most likely to get the double-double tonight. I feel like Moussa Diabate, especially if they can move the ball. You've even seen him. He can dribble the ball down the floor. He can take it coast to coast. I think the guy is, like Frankie Collins, kind of an X factor. He just changes the energy on the floor when he's out there. So will he get more than what, 3.5 fouls, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be over, but he'll probably also get a double-double tonight.
The question I was going to ask to kind of expand on him a little bit is, how would you, if you had to give a letter grade to Moussa Diabate's freshman year at Michigan, what would it be?
I give him a B plus.
Okay.
I give him a B plus.
I think that's fair. I think I'd probably say a B, but I'm in that same neighborhood. Dude, there are some times when he gets the ball on the low baseline, like outside of the paint, and he puts together a string of 2 or 3 moves that would make Hakeem Olajuwon come out of his chair. It's just like, are you kidding me? And then other times, it's like he puts up a baby hook and he doesn't even hit the rim, and I'm like, oh, dude, like what? It's all there. It's all there, and that's where you see, like, some games he gets a couple dumb fouls, and then he has to go to the bench, and he can't do those amazing things where he's running up the floor like a gazelle or he's throwing it down. You know what he is?
He's young. He's a young player. And we looked at a lot of these guys. Man, I remember before the basketball season, we were thinking like one and done for some of these guys.
Yeah.
It's clear that they're young. They're going to need some time. But I think Moussa Diabate, out of all those guys, man, I'm super excited. And you talk about, like, when we were at the press conference, being impressed with the way they looked physically. Moussa Diabate, when he walks into a room, you know he's in the room. Like, the dude is just springy, put together, has that Kevin Garnett type look to him. That's how he models his game.
Yeah.
That's what he models his game after. Big fan of him. And he just, solid B plus. If he can put it together in his sophomore year, he's going to be one of the best players in the country.
All right, I'm going to ask you for one more. It's off the top of your head. Obviously, I'm throwing these to you a little bit.
Keep them coming. I'm enjoying it.
They were coming, but
the man Mosa's going down smooth.
You've given me 2 predictions, very specific ones, which I like. I like that. You said Eli Brooks will hit 2 threes in the second half. You said Moussa Diabate will get the double-double. Give me one more. Give me one more specific prediction that we can put down on paper and come back and talk about after this game, win or lose. I mean, like, these things could still happen even if Michigan doesn't win, which is why I like them, so we can talk about them again when we do the recap. And I'm going to do 3 of my own here in just a second.
One more specific.
Yeah.
Let's go with Frankie Collins.
Okay.
Critical steal in the second half. Michigan needs to get it back. They got to get it back. Frankie's on the floor. The crowd's going crazy. Frankie swipes it. Kind of similar to what we saw with Burke against Michigan State.
Trey Burke?
Like
Michigan
a Trey
State
Burke,
steal?
like they got to get a point, like a whop down. And it's you know what? It's the emergence officially of Frankie Collins.
All right. Frankie Collins, critical.
Wouldn't it be beautiful?
Second. It would be beautiful. Eli, 2 threes, second half. And Moussa dub. I like it, dude. I like it a lot. Now I got to try to come up with 3. I think Hunter Dickinson is going to walk his way into a double-double. I think he is going to be a horse against this undersized Villanova team, and I think that they're going to be I think that Villanova is going to make sure that he doesn't beat them from the outside. I think, like, I'm torn on what they're going to do with him because I was
going to say, wouldn't you rather push him out?
But I think they're going to double. And so but I still think he's going to get a double-double. I think his size is going to be too much for both of those front court players to handle. I mean, dude, he's going to have.
They're 6'9", right? They've got 2
7, 6'8". They're starting bigs. I think he's gonna be a monster. I think he's gonna have a double-double, and I think it's gonna be pretty easy. I think Eli Brooks I didn't realize that, but the fact that he's played Villanova before and he's been to, I guess he's been to 5 Sweet 16s in a row. Is that right? That's got to be right, right?
That's got to be right.
He made 5 in a row and he's been there forever. I think Eli Brooks goes for 20 plus tonight. I think Eli
would
Brooks
be big time,
big, and he's gonna have a little bit of a day against those guards that aren't nearly as athletic as the guards were for Tennessee. And I'm going to go with, what do I want to say here? I might go real. Kobe Buffkin's going to score 2 buckets. Didn't even play last game.
Okay.
Didn't even play last game. He's going to score two nice buckets where you're going to say, why didn't he play last week or last game?
I like it.
I might be wrong. He might not even step off the bench. But, I love that kid's game. I tweeted about this a couple times throughout the season. He just looks like he looks like at one point it's going to click for him and he's going to be one of the best players on the floor. I just love everything about him. I love his build, his bounce, his length. He's obviously got the confidence to shoot it. He hasn't got a lot of opportunity this year, but I love everything about the way that kid plays. So there's my 3 predictions. I think all 6 for both of us are like, the Kobe one's a little bit of a stretch, but I think the other 5 are pretty realistic.
Pretty realistic, yeah. And I mean, it's weird if you look at where we were, 5-6 weeks ago, talking about this basketball team. We didn't view them this way, and now we're sitting. Yeah. We're a couple hours away from a Sweet 16 appearance, thinking that Michigan has a legitimate shot, not just to make it to the Elite 8, but this is now a tournament team. And I think it's a testament. I know that the foundation started under John Beilein, but with all the struggles that this team went through in 2020 and all the doubt and all the NIT and all that stuff, look at where they are now, still carrying the torch. And so I think Juwan Howard got a lot of shit for like one bad moment in Madison, but by and large, people don't talk enough about how great of a job he's done in Ann Arbor and continuing on what John Beilein built. And they are the most successful basketball program in the Big Ten currently, hands down, no argument. That's a really cool place to be.
We'll close out with a little bit of a comment about Hunter Dickinson talking about the other teams in the Big Ten. I freaking love it because he was asked about it and he wasn't over the top disrespectful, but he said like, they disrespected us. They were talking about NIT. They were giving us all these chants, and now they're watching us from the crib. I love it. I love it. I know. Well, I don't know. I don't know if you love it as much from him. Do you want to talk about Hunter Dickinson for a minute? Would you like to just give
my thoughts and feelings on it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, all right. So, I'll be honest about it. So, after the Michigan State, obviously Hunter Dickinson had a great game against Michigan State, but I think then they followed it up with a contest against Ohio State where they stunk. And I've always kind of like when I found out that Hunter Dickinson was coming back for his sophomore year, I thought that guy's going to be a leader. He's going to be a floor general. He's going to be this, and that. And I just really haven't seen that from Hunter Dickinson. And so like, when he was like talking about being that dude, I like called Brandon and I'm like, I just don't know that Hunter Dickinson is that dude. I'm not sure that he is. He's very effective, but we talked about it. Like, how will it translate to like the next level in the NBA? And we went on sort of like a long conversation, but maybe I'm guilty of not giving him enough credit because the guy certainly can put the team on his shoulders. He can score points. He's the most consistent guy they have. The offense should run through him. But always when it comes to Hunter Dickinson, I've always just kind of thought that he should be tougher than what he is. And the only thing I can compare it to is the same way I felt about Dwight Howard back in the day. Like I felt like Dwight Howard had the physique of a Greek god and he could do whatever he wanted on the basketball court, but mentally he just seemed soft and couldn't use it the right way. And so I kind of compare those two things. I mean, I don't want to disparage Hunter Dickinson. Love the guy and I love the trash talk because I love to trash talk. I want Hunter Dickinson to be tougher and it's not his game. Does that make sense? Is that a bad thing?
No, and I don't disagree. I feel like I'm him. I feel like that really stuck in your craw for a minute there.
It did for a minute. Look,
I want to be very clear on this. It's not like Chris is calling me every day like, God damn it, that Hunter.
Damn this Hunter Dickinson.
I can't stand. No, It wasn't that. It was like a one specific type of thing where he was really talking and then didn't maybe back it up as well the next
Trust
game.
me. Yeah, I was going to say, I would love for nothing more than for Hunter Dickinson to be that dude. But sometimes I just feel like, I don't know. I just want to see Hunter Dickinson be a little more rough, a little more physical, a little more dominant in the post than what he is. And that's the only thing I can say. Like, I'm not hating on the guy. I love Hunter Dickinson. I think he's great.
But, you know, we can close it out with just wishing all the Iowa, Michigan State, Wisconsin, Ohio State, Illinois fans.
We have good problems over here.
We can wish all of
Good
you a
problems.
farewell. I don't know. There's probably hardly, and none of them will see this, but you know, that's the cool part. We can talk shit about them and they'll never see it, and we can just let it live out there. What was it? There was a stand-up comic who said he was like doing a special and he used to do a ton of jokes about the Amish because they'll never see it. Say whatever you want. You say whatever you want. They're never going to see it, right? So I don't know. The Illinois fans, the Michigan State fans, Wisconsin fans, they can watch this if they want to, and they'll have time because their teams aren't playing. So whatever. Have fun out there, everybody. We still managed to fill up 55 minutes. We said we might be a little short.
That man Mosa is hitting hard. I don't know that I'll make it through the full game.
Yeah, well, I hope you do. I mean, I would like to be able to talk to you about it.
I'll make it through the full game, but it doesn't. Whatever I can't promise that I will be completely coherent on social media.
There you have it, everybody. Thanks for joining us again. Sorry about the delay. We were, I was just out of pocket. I don't have another word for it. If you could see what I was doing for the last week, I don't know. You can probably imagine. It wasn't quite Indiana game, but it was. I mean, it was up there. I don't know. We'll see what happens when we come back. But watch this game tonight. We'll be talking about. I don't know. Maybe we'll jump back on tomorrow night to talk about the game, whether they win or lose. Obviously, if they win, we'll have a preview that we can talk about for Saturday, and then we'll kind of go from there. But everybody, I'm sure, will be tuning in. We'll see what happens with Michigan. We have our six predictions again. Chris thinks that Frankie Collins is getting a critical steal in the second half, that Musa Diabate is going to record a double-double, and that Eli Brooks will hit 2 threes in the second half. I think Hunter Dickinson will get a double-double, that Eli will go for 20+, and that Kobe Buffkin will get off the bench and get himself at least 2.
Buffkin.
We'll see how that plays out. So thanks, everybody, for listening. We will be back on probably tomorrow. We'll see how tomorrow goes. It is a Friday. We'll see what happens with Michigan. But we'll be back soon. No more 2-week hiatuses. Is that a word?
Hiatuses? Hiatusi?
Hiatusi? I love it. Take care, everybody. We'll be back later. Chris, enjoy the man mimosas.